I believe that we're going to experience a monetary collapse, and that will be the fact that our dollars don't buy anything, because the mathematics of continuing to borrow and spend 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend is unsustainable. That's the bad news. The good news is that we can fix this. We can fix this. We can balance the federal budget. We can slash spending. We can stop printing money. We can adopt strong U.S. dollar policies, not weak U.S. dollar policies. So I'm making 3 promises as President of the United States. First promise, I promise to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013.
Yeah!
Now that's not promising a balanced budget, that is promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, which is a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending. I'm also promising, promise number 2, to veto any expenditures by Congress that exceed revenue. Now, one thing I didn't mention, my having been governor of New Mexico, I may have vetoed more legislation as governor of New Mexico than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I vetoed 750 bills while I was governor of New Mexico, thousands of line item vetoes, made a difference when it came to billions of dollars worth of spending. Only 2 were overturned. It made a difference when it came to you and I having to comply with government, meaning I didn't sign on to legislation that was just going to simply take more time and more money to have to comply with issues that really weren't going to make us any safer or any better off. With those 2 promises, promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, promising to veto expenditures by Congress that exceed revenue, even if they override, I suggest to you that spending will be less with those 2 promises implemented than any other scenario you could possibly come up with. Lastly, I promise to advocate on the part of throwing out the entire federal tax system. No more income tax, no more corporate tax, no more tax withholdings, no more IRS, and replace it with the fair tax, which I really think reboots the American economy for the next 100 years. It ends up being cost neutral over a very short amount of time. It's really the answer when it comes to jobs, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what will. And it's really the answer when it comes to our exports. It's the answer to China by making our exports 23% more competitive. So, promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress, promising to veto expenses that exceed revenue, and then promising to advocate on the part of the fair tax, which I think issues the pink slips to half of Washington lobbyists, because they're not going to be there anymore. There will be no more deductions. The fair tax will be fair. I believe in the power of the individual. I believe in constitutionally guaranteed equality. You know what? We need to defend the Constitution. And it isn't just when it applies to you and I, it's when it has to apply to everyone. We need to stop the practice of torture and detainment without being charged. I oppose the death penalty. As governor of New Mexico, I came to recognize, and this was a reversal in position, I came to recognize that the government makes mistakes when it comes to the death penalty. And I don't want to put one innocent person to death to punish 99 that are guilty. The government doesn't need to fix anything when it comes to the internet.
Yeah, there you go.
I support the abolishment of the Department of Education, Housing and Urban Development. I'm open to the discussion of abolishing any federal agency. And here's the argument on abolishing the Federal Department of Education. The Federal Department of Education gives each state about 11 cents out of every dollar that every state spends. But it comes with 16 cents worth of strings attached. So it's really a negative to take federal money. Just give education back to the states, 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice, and that's exactly what we will have. We will have best practices that get emulated. We're going to have some horrible success that'll get avoided, but that's how we improve education in this country, is the state model, not federal government model, one size fits all. It doesn't fit all. Let's not build a fence across the border. That would be an incredible waste of money. And if you want to test it out, let's just build a fence around Worcester. Oh boy. And see how that works. See if it keeps you in or out. It's not going to do it. When it comes to immigration, we should make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to get a work visa. Not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa that would entail a background check and a social security card that applicable taxes would get paid. And if we implement the fair tax, taxes won't be an issue, because if you're legal, illegal, visitor, U.S. citizen, you will not avoid paying the consumption tax. I believe in a strong national defense. The operative word, though, is defense, not offense, not nation building. I'm opposed to foreign aid. We borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar, and then we turn around and give it away. We need to extricate ourselves from our current military conflicts. The basis being is there is not a military threat involved. We need to stop the prohibition of drugs. We need to legalize marijuana. Look, border violence is a prohibition phenomenon. That's the answer when it comes to addressing this issue. I believe in free markets. You believe in free markets? Well, free markets doesn't mean tariffs. We should abolish the Department of Homeland Security. As President of the United States, I talked about all those bills I vetoed. I would have vetoed the Department of Homeland Security. I think it's incredibly redundant. That means we wouldn't have a TSA. TSA should have been left to the airports, to the airlines, to states, to municipalities. I'd like to think that I would have voted against the Patriot Act, but we should repeal the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
The ACLU came out with a report card here on all the presidential candidates about 8 weeks ago. And whether you like the ACLU or hate the ACLU, I've always found that they're kind of right. And they're right from the standpoint that this is a group that defends the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. I think what libertarians do is I think libertarians embrace the notion of a balanced budget and the notion that civil liberties need to be protected. So the ACLU came out with a report card. 24 Liberty Torches was a perfect score. Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum had 0 Liberty Torches out of 24. Newt Gingrich had 4 Liberty Torches out of 24. President Obama had 16 Liberty Torches out of 24. Ron Paul, somebody I admire and support, and I hope he gets the Republican nomination, but I don't know if he is, got 18 out of 24. And Gary Johnson got 21 out of 24, which I think is really impossible. It really is very important. I think that it's dual-fold in this country, that we want to defend our civil liberties, and we want to do that in the context of a government that doesn't overspend, that doesn't put itself in a position of collapse, which is where we're at. I want to thank all of you for your activism. I think that you've made a huge difference in this country when it comes to people and their recognition of government spending and the solutions that go along with that. I would just ask you to genuinely look at solutions. Look at the problems. Everybody pretty well identifies the problems. Look at the solutions. Not everybody recognizes the real solutions to the problems that we have. And then lastly, what you've got to consider in the case of voting for a president of the United States is the resume. What's to suggest that this is a person that's going to actually go out and do what he or she says they're going to do, to doggedly pursue an agenda that really, in my opinion, does save America. Thank you all very, very much.